You already know that if you go up to this boss stone at the spawn, you can get Eikthar's location on the map. But did you know that this also works even if you don't have a map? So if you use the no map feature on the new Valheim world modifiers section, you can still get the location of Eikthyr and actually all the other bosses in the game too. So the way this works is as follows. You'll see right now there's no map in the top right of my screen, but if I go over to Eikthyr, look at this stone right here, and I press E and then just wait, the camera will actually move. There we go. What you can do is take your hammer with you and some wood and get like a little build piece and just line up the direction that you need to head in. So we know it's roughly that way, so it's like there-ish, I guess, and then we can line that up. This means if we put our hammer away and we run around on the world, even if we're like fighting and doing some other stuff, when we get our hammer back out again, the build piece will still point in the same direction. There are a number of ways in which you can kill deer, but one of the most common ways of killing them early on in this game is to press control so that you can sneak up on them, just like you see here. So if I sneak up on this deer from behind, then when I get close enough to it, I can go ahead and give him a hit, and there we go, we can kill him, usually in one hit, sometimes it takes two like I did there. But there are a few other ways of killing deer too. One way is to use your hammer, right click it, and select the cooking station that you see right here, just this normal wooden one, which will look like this. Then when you're out and you see a deer, what you can do is actually sprint at the deer and it will start running away from you, but you can use the cooking stand to sort of block it in and trap it if you do this just right. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to do, but if we block it in, then you switch to your club and simply hit it like that and it will allow you to kill it. Now I will say that method is a little bit more difficult and perhaps a bit more advanced. It's something that a lot of speedrunners use, but it's something you may want to bear in mind if you want to give it a go. More common in the early game is to make a workbench and cover it over, probably more elegantly than I have done here, and then when you use the workbench you can make one of two things. Firstly, we have the flint spear and we need 5 wood, 10 flint and 2 leather scraps for that. Flint will always be found near water, so rivers and oceans and things like that, and it just looks like this down here on the floor, so you just go ahead and pick that up. Now, the advantage of making up a flint spear is that it is the sort of weapon that you can use up close if you want to hit enemies with it. You can also throw it using the middle mouse button to give you a ranged option as well as the up close option. But then when you're out exploring, you can get your spear and you want to find the deer and throw it at the deer before the deer actually sees you. So obviously aim a little bit above it to make sure we hit it, and there we go, it will one-shot it. So it's a personal preference thing, but I would prefer to craft up some wooden arrows in the early game, and it's just 8 wood for 20 arrows, and then go ahead and make up the crude bow, which is just 10 wood and 8 leather scraps. We get the leather scraps by killing the boar that you'll see around the Meadows biome. Do be careful because they will attack you back, and early game they could potentially kill you, especially when you're new to the game. We're going to talk more about boars later and how to find them and how to find better boars, but for now let's go back to killing the deer. With your bow equipped, you can hold left click to go ahead and shoot at a deer, and again you want to make sure you do that before it sees you, and then it's a nice easy kill. Now deer will drop the deer meat as well as the deer hides and also the deer trophy, and these are all very useful to you in the early game. You will see all kinds of different structures in the Meadows biome, such as this one right here. Different structures will of course have different things in them, but in this one we have 2 good examples. You can see here you can find a chest and also a beehive. On screen right now is the loot that you can get from these chests. As you can see, it's not necessarily great, but in the early game it can be a little boost. Now with the beehives, you can just use a bow to shoot at it and it will fall down and you'll get the drops from it if you wish. But if we go ahead and place a workbench nearby, we can take down the entire structure, including the beehive. This is a great way to get a lot of wood in the early game, and the fastest way to do it is take down all the bits that are connecting up to either the floor or any trees or rocks nearby, as these will be foundational pieces. Once those are all taken down, gravity takes over, everything falls to the floor, and you get yourself a ton of free wood. And on top of that, over here, of course, we've got the bee and the honey that we get from the beehive, and that can be used in the recipe for making your own beehives for honey production, which is a great early game food source. You can also find abandoned villages, such as the one that you see here. Now, the houses may have beehives and chests in them, just like any abandoned house, so the loot for that is the same, but villages come with other advantages. Firstly, there will always be some raspberry bushes nearby, and in this village there's actually quite a lot of those, which is a good early game food source. On top of that, you can find wood piles to get yourself a load of free early game wood by just destroying those and picking up the wood. So you're not able to get coal the way the game intended at this point in the game, but you can break these signs in order to get it a little bit earlier if you wish to do so. Another thing to look out for are these stone structures right here, and they should loosely resemble the outline of a boat, and you can kind of see that from the air, but it's not always as obvious when you're running up to them. However, when I'm running along, these structures do stick out a bit. As you can see here, you can notice all these stones, and there's actually treasure and bones inside them, which I'll show you in just a second. Now, you will need to kill Eikthyr and get yourself a pickaxe first before you can do anything with these structures, but you can always just mark them on the map in the meantime before you've done that. Now, if I go to one of the ends of this boat and just go ahead and dig down, then I'll show you what we can find underneath. So having dug down as far as I can get, as the water is now preventing me going any further, I'm then just going to go ahead and dig like this and dig the boat area out. And look at that, there you go. You can find a chest right here with the usual loot tables. I actually put the loot table on the screen right now. This is the loot table for the chests you can find in this area. So these are treasure chests, and you get slightly better loot than what you can get from the normal chests that you'll find in abandoned houses in the Meadows. And these items can be kind of useful to you, especially in the early game. On top of that, you can find skeletal remains inside these boats as well. So if we go ahead and pick those up, you'll see there we added some bone fragments. A structure that's a bit harder to miss is this large stone circle that you see right here. Now, there won't be any buried treasure or bones found by digging out the middle of these. And if you go up to them with a pickaxe and hit away, you'll see that we're actually not doing any damage to them, so we can't actually mine them to get rock or anything like that. So these stone circles are mostly just aesthetical, but one use you can have for them is to build off from them. So if I go ahead and place a build piece way down on top up there, you can see that this build piece is showing as blue, which means it is a foundational piece, and you can build pretty high off that if you want to. So if you wanted to build a base within here and use these stones to build off of, then you can actually build a more stable base, and it would also be more protected. You see, when you get raids later on in the game, the mobs are not able to destroy these rocks, so that would mean a good chunk of the base that was inside here would be protected by these rocks. If you find an abandoned structure like this, then you can get some wood from it, and you can also get some stone from the middle. But what's more exciting is the core wood you can get from this. So again, we need to go ahead and place a workbench somewhere nearby. Then with our hammer selected, if you take out these poles right here, so 1, 2 there, and that one there is number 3. I'm going to zoom in on this one, and it's that one there, and that one over there. You'll see here that what we can pick up is core wood. Now, normally to get core wood, you'd have to venture into the Black Forest, which is not a good idea early on in the game. Right here, we can go ahead and pick it up and get ourselves some core wood before we're supposed to be able to. And this will allow you to build things that you shouldn't be able to at this stage of the game, and those things can be quite useful. For example, the sitting log recipe you can see here is 2 core wood. So if you go ahead and place that down near your base, it will add a comfort level. Now, comfort and the rested bonus in Valheim is a full tutorial in and of itself, and one that I've actually made. So if you want to check that out, there'll be a link in the description. You can also find these cool stone structures here that have like a stone being held up by a few other stones underneath it. Now, underneath here, you can see we have a few things. We've got skeletal remains, so we can pick up more bones from here. But you can also find treasure. So there we go. There's actually 5 amber here too. Now, this type of village right here is quite rare to find in a Meadows biome. And when you're new to a game, you should be very glad about that because you want to avoid this village. See, these villages have these inhabitants right here. These are Dragger. And when you're new to the game and you come here, they will kill you. Even an experienced Valheim player would not be able to take on this village with early game gear. Heading inside one of these big houses, you can see there's a lot of Dragger in here hanging out. But there's also this thing right here, which is called a body pile. A body pile is basically a Dragger spawner. So when you kill them, more will spawn here, making it even more dangerous. You can spot the Dragger village by these bigger houses. These sorts of big completed houses like this will not be found anywhere else other than a Dragger village. On top of that, there's usually some sort of fence wall around the outside. It is a bit broken, but you can see here this type of fence wall, and you don't get this around just normal abandoned villages, just the Dragger villages. And on top of that, of course, you might spot a few Dragger walking around the village, which is a bit of a giveaway. So if you're new, do avoid these or you definitely will die. Now, a final thing you can find in the Meadows biome, but is extremely rare, is of course Hilda, which is this little lady right here, one of the traders in Valheim. Now, you probably won't find her on your starting island. You'll probably have to go further afield, but she does spawn in a Meadows, so I thought I'd mention it. If you'd like to see a full guide on Hilda and the Hilda's quests and stuff like that, there's a link in the video description where I have covered this before. Now, I'm in ghost mode right now, which is why these boar are not attacking me, because I want to show you this stone right here, which is actually a boar stone. Now, if we go up to the runestone and we hit E to read it, then this gets translated for us and we can read it. But basically, if you see the start of the second paragraph there, it says, "Look also to the wild boar who roam these lands." And that's how you can tell that it is a boar stone. On top of that, there are usually a lot of boar around it. Now, this is the thing why it's a good idea to sort of note this in the early game. You will get a lot of boar spawning around this stone, and boar are a very useful early game resource to kill, but you'll also get better boar spawning around here. It's like 1 and 2 star boar, which basically mean that you get more drops every time you kill them. These are the best for breeding, and if you want to see more about how to breed boar, then I'll put a link to my video on that down in the description. We'll see other runestones in the game that just look like this. Now, this is not a boar stone, and the way you can tell is when you read it, it will not have the paragraph there about the boar. So don't just make a note of any old runestone in the game, and do make sure it is actually a boar stone. An early game item you'll be making for sure is the stone axe. You can see here it just needs 5 wood and 4 stone. And with that axe equipped, you can go and chop down some of the larger trees that you'll find around the Meadows biome. However, you will notice that these white trees right here, the birch trees, if we try and hit those with our stone axe, a message will come up saying it's too hard and we're not actually able to chop them down. This is unfortunate because they contain fine wood, which can be a useful early game resource to get if you want to make a quick progression. However, fear not, because all you need to do is chop down some of the beech trees that you see that are around a birchwood tree. So we're going to chop down this tree right here because it's near that birchwood tree there just behind it. Now, we're hoping when it falls into the birch tree, but unfortunately there's no real way of controlling this. So you might have to do this a few times with other trees that are nearby. Do be careful, by the way, because if a falling tree hits you, you will die. It's kind of a rite of passage for everyone playing Valheim that you die to a falling tree at least once, in my case many times, but yeah, do be careful of that. So this log has fallen here. What we're going to do now is chop it up, because the first process of chopping it turns it into these 2 smaller logs you see right here. At this stage, we can actually push this log around a bit. This can be a bit tedious, and sometimes you have to remove things that are in the way, but it can also be worth it. So the reason it's worth it is because we can roll this log into this tree, and you see the little number that came up there indicates that this means it's taking damage. If we keep doing this process over and over again, we can actually chop down the fine wood in that way. So basically, we're just going to keep rolling this beech tree into the birch tree in order to chop down the birch tree and get that fine wood. And there we go, it's falling down. So it's a bit of a tedious process, that's for sure, but it does work. And now that it's fallen down, we just need to push more logs into it to break it up once again. And the next time we break it up, we'll be breaking it from these logs into the actual fine wood. As you saw there, it did take damage, so do be careful when you're doing this, because you could also kill yourself just by rolling logs, which would not be fun. So there we go, it's just broken up into 2 logs. Now we just keep doing it, and sometimes this will happen. The other log will break before the one you're trying to break. And that's why you want to choose a birch tree that's surrounded by a lot of beech trees, because you may need to cut down quite a few of them before you manage to break it up into the fine wood. There we go, finally. So it does take quite a long time to do, but we did manage to get some fine wood. If you want a full guide to starting a new Valheim world properly, then click the video on screen right now, and please do subscribe to see all my future videos.